The lawn wars begin. My name's Samantha Cole, and I live in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Or at least, it used to be peaceful before the HOA and Karen Simmons decided that my front yard was some kind of public park. I bought my house 3 years ago. A beautiful 2-story brick home with a wide, green lawn that I personally took care of every weekend. My lawn was my pride. Trimmed edges, blooming roses, and a perfect green carpet that felt like velvet under your feet. But apparently, the Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, thought otherwise. It started small. A few kids running across my lawn on their way to the community pool. I didn't mind. Kids will be kids. But then Karen and her HOA friends started using my lawn as a shortcut during their morning inspection walks. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then, one morning, I saw it clearly from my kitchen window. Karen herself, latte in one hand, clipboard in the other, marching straight across my grass like she owned the place. I stormed outside. "Hey, you're stepping on my lawn!" I yelled. Karen froze, gave me that plastic smile she always wore, and said, "Oh, don't worry, Samantha. It's just a shortcut. We all do it. It's community property anyway." I blinked in disbelief. "Community property? That's my private yard." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you must not have read the HOA guidelines properly. Everything facing the street must be accessible to residents for inspection. We just need to make sure everyone maintains their homes up to standard." I clenched my fists. "That doesn't mean you can walk through it like it's a park." She just smiled wider. "You'll understand once you've been here longer. Anyway, the HOA meeting is next week. Be sure to attend. We'll be discussing lawn care standards." And just like that, she walked away, her heels leaving dents in my perfectly trimmed grass. The escalation by next week, it got worse. I caught not only Karen, but 2 of her HOA buddies cutting diagonally across my yard, carrying their clipboards and cups of coffee, chatting like it was their personal trail. I decided to handle it politely. I printed a small sign, "Private property. Please do not walk on grass." I stuck it in the ground near the sidewalk. The next morning, it was gone. Just gone. I checked the security footage from my doorbell camera. There she was, Karen Simmons herself, pulling out the sign and tossing it in her tote bag, like it was trash. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't carelessness. This was territory marking. The HOA meeting I attended the HOA meeting that week, sitting quietly in the back. Karen stood at the podium, acting like she was running for mayor. Now, about Samantha's lawn, she began. Heads turned toward me. She's installed unauthorized signage that disrupts the community aesthetic. HOA policy prohibits any signage without prior approval. I raised my hand. It was just a private property sign. "You keep walking through my yard." Karen smirked. "Well, Samantha, your property faces the street, which technically makes it part of the community's visible frontage. The HOA has inspection rights to ensure uniformity." The crowd murmured. That's when I stood up. "You mean you want uniform lawns because you can't mind your own business?" Gasps filled the room. Karen's face stiffened. "If you're not going to cooperate, the HOA may have to issue a fine." I laughed. "Fine me for what? Having grass you can't stop walking on." Karen shot me a glare, sharp enough to cut glass. The final straw. 2 days later, I came home from work and saw something that made my blood boil. Tire tracks across my lawn. Someone had driven a golf cart. Yes, a golf cart, right through the middle of it. My sprinklers were crushed, and one of my garden lights had snapped clean off. I didn't even need to check the cameras, but I did anyway. Sure enough, there she was again. Karen, sitting in a white HOA golf cart, clipboard in hand, driving right over my grass like it was the freeway. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every blade of grass that woman had trampled burned in my mind. I tried calling the HOA office, but of course, Karen herself answered. "Karen speaking," she chirped. "This has to stop," I said through clenched teeth. "You drove your cart through my yard." "Oh, calm down, Samantha," she said, her tone smug. "The cart needed to inspect the sprinkler alignment. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I have footage," I snapped. "Footage won't help you. HOA policy allows inspection access." Click. She hung up. The surprise plan, that was it. I wasn't going to fight her with words anymore. It was time to fight her with creativity. The next day, I went to the hardware store and bought supplies. A motion sensor, a few cameras, garden fencing, and something special, an automatic sprinkler system with remote activation. That night, I stayed up late installing everything. My front yard looked the same, but it wasn't. Now it was booby-trapped. I hid the motion sensors near the edges of my lawn, just under the mulch. The sprinkler system was programmed to blast anyone who stepped onto the grass, but not with water from the main line. I'd hooked it up to my fish pond's recycled water. Perfectly harmless, but very, very smelly. The day of karma, 2 days later. It happened. I was sipping coffee, watching my camera feed on my tablet, when I saw them, Karen and her HOA crew, coming down the street. Clipboards ready. I hit record. Karen strutted right up to my property line and, as usual, cut straight across my lawn. The motion sensor blinked green. The sprinklers hissed. And then, whoosh! A sudden high-powered burst of fishy pond water exploded from the grass, drenching Karen and her friends head to toe. They screamed. Karen dropped her clipboard, slipping in the mud, her white suit, now a dripping mess of greenish-brown slime. I nearly choked on my coffee, laughing so hard I could barely breathe. Karen looked around wildly, trying to figure out what happened. She spotted my camera near the porch and yelled, "Samantha, what have you done?" I stepped outside with my phone still recording. "Just watering my lawn," I said sweetly. "You always say the HOA needs regular inspections." "Well, looks like the sprinklers are working fine." Her eyes widened in rage. "This is harassment," I smiled. "No, Karen, this is property maintenance." Her friends tried to pull her away, muttering, "Let's go, Karen, let's go." But she was already dialing her phone. "You'll be hearing from the HOA board," she screeched as she stomped off, dripping and furious. The aftermath be that evening, the HOA issued me a violation notice for improper sprinkler system behavior and aggressive property management. I laughed when I read it. I sent them back the footage of Karen trespassing, complete with timestamps and video evidence. 2 days later, I received another email, this time from the HOA Legal Committee. After reviewing the evidence, the HOA acknowledges that members improperly entered private property. The violation notice has been withdrawn. In short, I won. But something told me Karen wouldn't stop there. She'd been embarrassed, publicly, and on camera. And if I knew anything about HOA Karens, they never forget. Karen strikes back. For 2 glorious weeks, my lawn stayed untouched. No more footprints. No more HOA inspections. And definitely no more Karen. Or so I thought. It started with a letter, hand-delivered, folded neatly, with the HOA logo printed in gold on top. Notice of community review. Dear Ms. Cole, due to multiple community concerns regarding your property and recent incidents involving HOA members, your home will undergo a formal review for non-compliance with HOA guidelines. Please attend the upcoming meeting. HOA Board didn't even need to read the signature. I already knew who was behind it. Karen Simmons. She couldn't find me for the sprinklers. So now she was trying to frame me as a nuisance to the community. The HOA ambush. The following Thursday, I walked into the HOA clubhouse. The meeting room was full. Board members, homeowners, and of course, Karen sitting at the front table with that smug, queen bee smile. As soon as I sat down, she stood up. "Let's begin the review for Ms. Samantha Cole," she said, tapping her pen on the table. "This homeowner has demonstrated repeated hostility toward HOA representatives." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the time you trespassed on my lawn?" Karen ignored me. She also installed unapproved irrigation systems that caused property damage to board members during an inspection. The crowd murmured. "That's a lie," I said firmly. "I have camera footage that shows you trespassing and triggering the sprinklers. You were not authorized to be on my property." One of the older board members, Mr. Larson, cleared his throat. "Karen, did the board give formal inspection authorization for Ms. Cole's lawn?" Karen hesitated. "Well, not formal, but so..." "No," I interrupted. Larson nodded. "Then that's private property, and she's within her rights to install motion-triggered sprinklers." Karen's lips tightened. Then she said something that made me freeze. "Well, perhaps Ms. Cole doesn't know, but her front yard technically extends 3 feet into the public easement, which means she's encroaching on community space." Gasps echoed through the room. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "I've reviewed the zoning maps," she said triumphantly. "Part of your lawn belongs to the HOA, so technically you're trespassing on us." I couldn't believe her nerve. She'd actually gone through zoning files just to find a loophole. Checkmate preparation. That night, I didn't sleep. I pulled out every document I had: property deed, survey maps, utility plans. And sure enough, Karen was partially right. A 3-foot strip of land along the sidewalk was technically part of the public easement, a shared maintenance area. But she didn't realize something crucial. The HOA was responsible for its upkeep, not ownership. And if they failed to maintain it, the homeowner could assume responsibility with full modification rights, which meant I could build on it as long as it didn't obstruct the sidewalk. So I came up with a plan that would make Karen's blood pressure skyrocket: the installations. Saturday morning, I hired a landscaping company. They showed up with a truck full of materials: lumber, metal posts, flower beds, and something special I'd ordered online: a motion-triggered lawn speaker system. By the afternoon, my lawn had transformed. A low wooden fence outlined my property, painted white with gold trim. Along the border, I planted rose bushes, thick, thorny, and gorgeous. And on that 3-foot easement strip, I installed a neat little decorative walkway leading to a sign that read, "Welcome to the Karen Crossing. Trespassers will be warded." In smaller text below, it added, "Smile for the camera." The motion-triggered speakers were hidden under the grass, programmed to detect motion and play my voice. "Warning, you are entering private property. Please turn back." It was polite, but firm. By sunset, I stood on my porch admiring my masterpiece. It was beautiful. And it was legal. Karen's meltdown. The next morning, I didn't even have to check my cameras. I heard her. "Samantha!" I peeked out the window and saw Karen standing at the edge of my lawn, hands on her hips, face redder than a fire hydrant. "What is this?" she shrieked. "My new landscaping project," I called back sweetly. "Approved under HOA's decorative border clause. Section 8, paragraph 3. You might have missed it. This is harassment," she yelled. "You can't put up signs mocking me." "Oh, I didn't name it after you," I lied. "It's a coincidence." Just then, one of the motion sensors triggered. The speakers came alive. "Warning, you are entering private property. Please turn back." Karen froze, eyes wide, mouth open. I waved. "See, works perfectly." She stomped away, muttering something about lawsuits. The retaliation. Over the next week, things got petty. Karen couldn't stand that I'd humiliated her twice. Once with the sprinklers, and now with the Karen crossing. She started sending letters again. One accused me of violating aesthetic harmony. Another claimed my fence was distracting to drivers. Then she filed an official complaint with the city zoning office. But that's where her plan backfired spectacularly, because when the city inspector came to check, he found that half of the HOA's decorative signage and planters were actually installed on the same easement zone, illegally. He wrote them up on the spot. Karen's face during that inspection. Priceless. The board revolt. By the time the next HOA meeting rolled around, Karen's authority was crumbling. Multiple residents had seen the sprinkler video. It went viral in the neighborhood group chat, and after the city fined the HOA for zoning violations, everyone was furious at her. When I walked in, people actually clapped. Karen tried to regain control. This is outrageous. Samantha is manipulating the rules. But Mr. Larson cut her off. No, Karen, you manipulated them, and now the whole HOA is paying for it. Someone in the back muttered. Queen Karen's reign is over. I couldn't help smiling. Then Larson said the words I'd been waiting for. Effective immediately, Karen Simmons is suspended from her position as HOA chairwoman, pending review. The room erupted in whispers. Karen stood up, trembling with anger. You can't do this. I built this HOA, Larson sighed. You destroyed its reputation. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The last confrontation. Few days later, I came home to find Karen waiting by my driveway. She looked defeated. Makeup smudged, hair messy, clutching a manila folder. I hope you're happy, she snapped. You humiliated me. I'm getting hate mail from my own neighbors. I crossed my arms. You brought it on yourself, Karen. You think you're clever, she hissed. Enjoy your little lawn trap. But don't think this is over. Oh, it's over, I said calmly. Because next week, the HOA is voting to dissolve your community patrol rule. No more unauthorized inspections. Her eyes widened. You can't? I smiled. Already on the agenda, she threw the folder on my driveway and stormed off. Inside were the last of her official HOA documents, complaint forms, inspection notes, even the zoning printout she'd used against me. At the bottom, I found a sticky note that read, Enjoy your lawn, princess. I laughed. I will. A year later, a year passed. Karen moved away. Rumor was, she sold her house after getting voted out of the HOA board entirely. My lawn, on the other hand, became something of a local legend. People walking by always stopped to take pictures of the Karen Crossing sign, still standing proudly, surrounded by bright roses and trimmed hedges. Every now and then, a new HOA volunteer would try to test the boundary, but the motion sensors still worked perfectly. Warning, you are entering private property. Please turn back. I always smiled when I heard it, because sometimes revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet, well-watered, and perfectly landscaped. Epilogue. The HOA's new rules X. Months after Karen's departure, the HOA added a new clause to its handbook. All board members must obtain written consent before entering any homeowner's property for inspection. It became known as the Cole Rule, and every time I see a neighbor mowing their lawn in peace, I can't help but grin, because in this neighborhood, everyone knows one thing for sure. You don't mess with Samantha's grass.